My name's Glenn Miller. Well, like I say, I'm vice president of this Emancipation Proclamation celebration, but I'm a deacon at Mount Carmel Baptist Church. But other than that, I'm just a wayward traveler. I'm just traveling through, and I don't have anything named to fame as far as that goes. Just a common man that does things like that. In 1843, well, we start back before that. In 1839, my family, or my immediate family, which is I'd say 5 generations from where I am, started in Bedford County, Virginia, with a man with the name of Charles Lambert Jr. Had it in his mind for some unknown reason, we don't know why. I've never got in contact with the family. I'd like to be able to do that to find out the reason he did. But he had brothers, he had sisters, and he also had an ex-wife, and that he evidently knew that he had some kind of illness that was going to be terminal. And in 1839, he decided to set all of what we know to be his slaves free. But one thing about that theory is that when he, in Bedford County, Virginia, when he made out his will and he sold everything that he had, down to the knives and forks and spoons and everything he had, in order to get money to bring my family to Ohio. And like I said, he had brothers. He had one brother that fought in the Revolutionary War that said that that they had a clause that if in Ohio there was 1,000 acres of land that was allotted to them. Well, we don't know where that is, but it was in that particular document we had. And in 1839, he decided to do this. And from 1839 to 1843, he died between that time. He never come to Ohio. He had executors that he sent here to buy the land and get all that things prepared before that. But between 1839 and 1843, after he died, well, the slaves that at that time he farmed them out to different plantations, but they were already free. They already set free to make money to put with that to get them to where they are. So he sent his executors here to Morgan County, or Morgan Township, Gallia County, Ohio, in 1843 to buy land from right up the road, which we called in Morgan Township, about 250 acres of land, and put 26 individuals. All of them were unmarried and didn't have, some of them, women had children, but they had no spouse. Every one of them after that, they got married while they were here. When they came, they put them in a communal, built a big building, they all stayed communal. But after that, they sectioned off the land and the parcels to different families. In my family, like I said, there's only, out of the 26 individuals come, there was only 2 that actually kept the Lambert name. One of them was Frank Lambert. And for years, the story was that there was 3 brothers. And how they got the story mixed up, I don't know. I can't even begin to tell you. And we didn't find out what the actual real story was until we did the Lambert Lands Monument, which you went to visit up there. But the original old story was that they told and put in the newspaper was Jim Sands and all those in Gallia County, the history, that there was 3 brothers, Miller, Menace, and Frank Lambert. Well, what we finally found out was that the only person one of the individuals that kept the Lambert name was Frank. But they had him listed in the original story that everybody told, handed down from generation to generation, that he was a slave owner. Well, we found that when we put the monument up and went to Bedford County, Virginia, that he was a slave. Now, another thing that it makes this story so unique is that when we left, he made the will out in Bedford County. We've got the original will, and it's in there in my book in the history segment, that when he freed them, that they kept the names that they had. The Miller that we had in Bedford County, Virginia, was the Millers that we have here today. But when they came to Gallia County and put it on the deed in Gallipolis, at the county seat, they listed them all as Lamberts. But now the thing that boggles my mind, and the thing that makes this thing so mysterious to me is that we don't know where he got these slaves from, but usually the slave kept the name of the family plantation. But our family didn't do that. And what I can't understand is why he put them in one place in Bedford County in 1839, and when they come here they listed them as Miller, or as Lambert. Only thing that I can figure is that he must have went out and gathered up a lot of slaves, and instead of giving them his name, allowed them to keep their original name. Now, the only way, and like I said, another thing was mysterious about this thing that the Lambert Lands Settlement was that there were more slaves that didn't come to Gallia County, but some of them were too old and too crippled up that he made provisions for them that actually stayed in Bedford County, Virginia. But the 26 that he sent here, like you said, that they got married when they got here. Some were as young as, the babies were some as 2 and 3 years old. And like I said, they all had different names, and the only names that really that we kept in this area was the Millers and the Meneses. Now, I've got a cousin here, he was here somewhere today, and he was one of the original families that we actually found out where we come from. How we actually figured out where we come, which was another mystery, that the old original story said we come from Fairfax County, Virginia. Fairfax County, Virginia is down next to D.C. But when we did the Lambert Lands, and we finally, well, we didn't actually know, because I've been to Fairfax County, talked to people, no indication that we was actually ever from there. So when we did the Lambert Lands, reason that we come to the conclusion that we come from Bedford County was that the Menace name, M-I-N-N-I-S, there was a man by the name of Callie Hill Menace. Well, we looked in the records, in Southern records, and we found that there was a Callie Hill Menace that lived in Bedford County, Virginia. With that name, with the Miller name, there's so many Millers that there's no way. But it just happened to come to the Callie Hill Menace, and the grandfather of my first cousin, his grandfather's name was Callie Hill. He actually took the Callie Hill Menace name. So we got to looking and found that they come from Bedford County, Virginia. We assumed that they did. So we got together, me and my wife and some of the others, and went to Bedford County, and happened to go to the town of Bedford, Virginia, which is the county seat of Bedford County. Went to the Historical Society and didn't know what we was doing, never did anything like that before, and went there and actually found the we got the Charles Lambert Sr.'s deed that he made to his sons. We ended from back in 1700 and some, and also we got Charles Lambert's original deed. And we found out for that's exactly where they come from. Then we found out where Charles Lambert is buried, somewhere between Bedford County. At that time, let me say this before I say this, Bedford County was like it was in Ohio. You had Ohio territory, which all the counties broke off of that and made different counties. The same thing happened in Bedford County. Well, Bedford County now takes in Richmond, Virginia. And Charles Lambert Jr. is buried somewhere between Richmond, Virginia, and Bedford County, or Bedford, Virginia, in that area. But as far as that, what I would like to find out is why he did what he did and what caused him to do it. In 1843, which was 20 years before the Civil War, between the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation and all those things together. It's a mystery, and I would love to be able to find out the why from that. And another thing that I'd like to find out is to come to the understanding conclusion. I'd like to let them know from what he did, from his family, part of them are probably still around, that we survived and we're still here and still doing well. Now, we don't own the land that was given to us between that time, because when he set the land up, or when his executors set it up, that no one person could own the Lambert lands. And everybody owned the land, the 250 some odd acres, in communion. Well, as years went by, that people moved away and people left, and somebody had to pay the taxes. And the thing of it is, the taxes got so high that nobody was able to pay them, because there's nobody still living on there. Where it used to be, there were 26 different families that went around and got part of the tax money from them. Well, it come up on the county court system to sell the property. Well, if I or any one of the descendants of the original Lambert Lands descendants would have went and paid the taxes, that everybody else that was acquainted or involved with that particular family, they could still come in and claim. So you'd have went in, maybe spent $5, $6, $7, maybe $10,000 to pay the taxes, which you didn't own. So it finally sold on the courthouse step. But anyway, from that, like I said, I would just love to be able to get to see some college or some university that would take this story. And I believe that this story is so big that it could be big as Roots. I believe it really could. But to putting all things behind, and like you said, Charles Lambert Jr., like I said, he had 3 different brothers. He had an ex-wife, and he had children. and had to go probate the thing to go through the court system, and brought money and brought us here, and here we are today. Well, let me start here. You know, like I said, my great grandfather, he got married after he moved, after he not moved here, but after he was put here, and he had 3 sons. He had Wyatt, Powell, and William, which was his son. Now my grandfather, or my great grandfather, fought in the Civil War, which his name was Powell. Now my father come out of that segment, and he had a big family, which my father's name was Rudolph Odell. Okay, but I didn't know at that time that, well, I didn't know that much about the Civil War, really, because I never really followed that segment of history. But I found out that he fought in the Civil War, and found out that we put a monument up for him up there as a veteran. And then, like I said, down through the years of where we come today, we find that where we are. And they all grew up there. In fact, putting a little bit ahead of the story, I was born there. Now, I never lived there, never grew up there, but my parents did, and their parents before them, they grew up there. They had a school, they had a church, they had everything. There was a community, a whole community of 26 individuals, plus the ones that was already living there. And before they come in 1843, as I told you earlier, that those who were living there was already working with the Underground Railroad. This was a direct route from across the Ohio River to there, to go on north. But there was a few families that actually lived in what wasn't on the Lambert Lands, but within the surrounding community. And there was a man that lives over here in Porter, right over off of Route 160, comes out of Galplit, that we know for a fact that he was on the Underground Railroad. Well, when the executors come, and his name was N.B. Sisson, and when the executors come, they knew, and I think that Charles Lambert had to have some connection with the Underground Railroad, of who, when the executors come, who to know to get in contact with, and who to be affiliated with, and how to get things work. So they came, and they bought the land, and already had the land bought and paid for when the 26 individuals come. But N.B. Sisson was a big contributor to the Underground Railroad in this area. We know that for a fact. Most of the Underground Railroad, if you've had anything to deal with them, it's a very secretive thing. A lot of people, you don't know where the sites are. The only site left in Gallia County that we know but now that was actually on the Underground Railroad is one, and it's in Galplit. But there were different segments from here between the Ohio River and to where we live, which was 15 miles outside of the river, that was on the Underground Railroad. But the the Ohio River plays a big part in the, well, I call it to the Promised Land. Across the river was slave state, and over here on this side of the river was free state. Of course, West Virginia finally succeeded from the Union and went to a state, but yet and still, that was our what you call our Statue of Liberty. You know, you can stand over here and look over there. They're just about as far as them trees are from here. You can see slave states, and you're over here. And another thing was unique about this particular Lambert Lands situation, that they had another community was about 5 miles west of where they were, that we called, or they called at that time, the patty rollers. You know what they were. Patrollers that come out of the slave station would catch people whether they had papers or not and take them back and put them back into slavery. 5 miles from there, they had a problem with that. They come and got them and took them over there. But the Lambert Land descendants, nobody ever come, as far as I know, that has had any problem with the patrollers. Never had anybody come in and question who they were. And like I said, I don't know what the difference was. I don't know what made that so unique, but we never had that problem. And it's, I don't know, it just seems like we've been blessed in that we never had a problem, that a lot of surrounding pockets, there were different pockets of blacks that were come out of slavery and had their own community. Right down below that was a place that they called Buck Ridge. And that's where on my father's side, which was Isham. Another I didn't tell you, but his name was Isham, the original one to come out. He married a woman from Buck Ridge, which was about 7-8 miles from where they were. And that way they got in that family. Then another time that they married in different pockets of black. There was about 5 or 6 different black communities in this area that were freed slaves. And like I said, that way we didn't get all interbred and intermingled, because they went in different places and got. One of them, like I said, was Buck Ridge. That's what, it's not a town, it's just a segment. Another one was Glen Summit, and that's still in, that little village is still up there right now. Another one was on up above that into next to Vinton, was another community, and I'll have to think about that for a while. But there was and then there was another one that's, Miss Luella's here. you know, Miss Leila, that's part of it. Her family come from Salem Center, which was north of where we were, and they were different pockets. And then they built the church in the Lambert Lands between Salem Center and there, and that way the ones from over there could come there about midway between, and we all gathered together that way. But there was different, I do know of 4 or 5 different communities were there. And you ask about how did they make a living? Well, at that time they were farmers. You know, they owned their own segment of land. In fact, I don't know how many, some had different acres and things like that, but there was only one out of the Lambert land, and you can look on the map, which is in my book in there, there's only one section that was actually sold back at that time. And what this person did, that was given to them, I don't know, it was 30 some acres of land that they went through the court system, was able to sell it. But it was said it was set up in a way that they couldn't do that, but she did. But anyway, and my family, my immediate family, which was 4 or 5 generations from Isham, one of their sons, which my grandfather's name was John Oliver, and they had several sons, and the oldest son fought in the World War I. He didn't fight him, but he was actually in the service, and he happened to die while he was in there. Well, what they did, they got at that time insurance off of him, and they bought a lot of property outside of the Lambert Land. And this one that was sold off, that I told you, 30 acres, they one time that they owned that. Now I was born right outside of there, right down below it, in a log cabin. You can think not that long ago that I was actually born in a log cabin. But I never went to school there, I never grew up in there, and I don't know that much about the people in it, but there was a flourishing community of 26 individuals. They all owned farms, they had farm animals, and at that time, you know, that's where you made your living. But they existed and they lived, and here we are today. Well, you know, generations change, and life's a generational thing. Every generation is different. And like I said, back at 1843 up until mid-1900s and on above that job situation is what it's called, I believe. And like I said, and it was in later years that everybody, there wasn't no work here other than doing farm work. So they more or less just left the community. And like I said, it got down to the place where there's only about 2 people that were actually living on the land. They couldn't afford to keep it. And even if they could have kept it up, paid the taxes, that they owned it in communal, so everybody could come in and still claim their place. But like I said, that's probably it's what caused it, just like all small communities. Well, this for an example, the Bob Evans farm. This is Bob Evans, wasn't his original home, but this is where his home was. Well, you got the place now where that doesn't make any difference. The corporation says no, that's, we won't want to be bothered with it. And then sooner or later they still got the name, but in 10, 15, 20 years they'll never even know anything that this ever happened. Same way with the Lambert Lands. Well, from the Second World War up to that, and by the time of the 50s come, well, there wasn't anybody left. But after World War II come, that, you know, people started leaving in order to get jobs and things like that. It just got to where it's no longer visible. But the land is still there, but it's no longer land. We got the monument. In fact, the monument that you went to look at, that's not on the Lambert Land. That's where the church is. And before there was a Lambert Lands, there used to be a school right there beside of it. And that's been back, you know, in the early 1800s is when this happened. Mm-hmm. But the church where you went to was actually founded in 1843. Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of things is what stirred our emotions about black history and things like that was stories like roots and things like that. And it got us to understanding that we've got roots. And just like the Emancipation, our main name to fame is that we've the oldest emancipation celebration in the United States of America. And what we make our fame on is that we have done it consecutively. And what I would like to see, and what I'd like to see kept alive with not only with emancipation, but also with my family and my heritage is that the greatest thing I'd like to see, I'd like to be able to go back south and find some descendant of Charles Lambert Jr. and Charles Lambert Sr. and let them know that what he did, that he did it with some kind of faith of love. He knew he was going to die and he wanted to do something for just to make sure that his slaves. And another thing that stands out in my mind since I started to say that when he died, he put it in his will and he said he wanted to be buried with his slaves. And for some unknown reason, I don't know whether he had cancer, I don't know whether it was something terminal, but something moved him to want to do everything that he did, and he sold everything that he did. And I'd like to be able to go back to some parts of Virginia or wherever them descendants might be and let them, whether they know about us, maybe they don't know that what he actually did over a period of time, And I'd like them know that what he did, that we survived. And because he did what he did with the money that he gave, the philanthropship that he provided, that we actually existed. We didn't come here and we didn't starve out, but we actually made it. And I'd like to let them know that. And I'd like to see this be able to be not so much put into history books, but I'd like to be able to, in Gallia County, that my family since 1843, or I could be put in the archives of Gallia County of some of the oldest living families in Gallia County. But it's not there. But anyway, that makes no difference to what I'm saying. But I would like to see somebody know that after I'm gone, and I just wished it my father, that I would have sat down and let him tell me some things that he knew. No one interested in that time. But I'd like to be able to, just what you're doing here, that somebody 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years from now can look at what you're doing and find out that what exactly happened to my family. The reason I say that is that my aunt, she wrote a book, Born in Poverty. She wrote it on the old story that was handed out to her. That's none of it is true, but what I'm telling you is true because we can authenticate it. We've got the will, we've got all of those things that can say that what I'm telling you is actually what happened. That's what I'd like to see. That's what I'd like to have my family to understand. That we lived, that we existed, and we are here today. You have to understand the time period. They were fresh out of slavery. And like I said, this was the promised land for them. And there was, in the history of the Emancipation that I've read and I've heard, that especially with my father, he was born in 1903. Of course, his grandfather and great-grandfather came in 1843. A lot had taken place and a lot had happened between that time. The Civil War had been fought and had been, well, we say more or less won. But with those that were from that period on to where we are, there's been as high as 10,000 people has come to Emancipation celebration from all, and what it was a homecoming for them. And it meant that much for them that they wanted to keep it alive, and they were so happy and so thrilled that they knew where they come from. They knew what they had suffered, they knew what they had done, and they wanted to be able to celebrate that. But we take today, as generation change, well, situation change. These children here, and I was the same way when I was their age. I didn't think anything about this. But now it's important to me. It's important to me. Well, let me put it this way. I heard you say that when you went to things such as this, it's back when I was young, well, we used to have it in a little park right outside of Bidwell. Well, you know where the Bidwell is or not. But anyway, it's about as big as this lot right here. But man, there'd be people from all over the world. Now, we'd come out there had a little stand just about this size. Guy, a white fellow would come and he'd have little old pinwheels and things like that. We weren't used to anything like that. And like I said, after we got older and I got away from that and quit going to the Emancipation, it didn't mean anything to me. But after I got connected with it and started looking, and I got interested in the history and what people would tell me, I just loved going to talk to old people, and listen to their stories. And I got interested in it and got interested in Emancipation. And me and Andy has been in this thing for 20 years. And like I said, and it's a lot different today than what it was when we first started. Used to be, as I told you this morning, it was just a one-day thing. Well, now this is a 365-day for us. We do it start now, from now to next year, we're still working on Emancipation stuff. But that's just how much it's progress. And you find a lot more people that are dedicated, and there's a lot of people that wants to know that don't know. And that's why I'd like to see it. My wish and my dream is that we could get it in the history books, not only of my family, but that segment of the United States of America. Let us know that we are human, we're people, we've got sense, we can survive, and we can do everything that anybody else has. The Batman asked me yesterday, if it cut your skin, what would you bleed? Well, everybody know you'd bleed blood. I said blue, because, most people think, that we're different. And the only way that they could portray you back years ago would make you feel different. It made you feel different. It made everybody look at you different. That your descendants were apes and things like that. And people told their children, oh, they've got tails and they got all these things. Well, the people have to understand that we are human beings just like everybody else. And we're not the only segment of the world that actually had slaves. Slaves has been in existence since the beginning of time. But like I said, this is a unique, but the reason I look at this as being unique is that this is the United States of America. You understand what I'm saying? This is a land that was brought over here for the people to have equal rights and all these things, but it didn't apply to people of color. I'm not just talking about my color, but people of color. Indians, they did everything in the world. The only good Indian was a dead Indian. And those are the things that the United States is founded on. And I believe the United States is going to have to come up to its comeuppance. I believe they're going to have to start looking at themselves, and they're going to have to look at it and say, hey, we're not everything that we think we are. We go out and fight wars for other people's freedoms and other people's rights, and we've got rights here that we can't even, if you understand what I'm saying. And I know you do because you're a part of this thing. Whether anybody else knows, but you know it. You know, there's things that if people know who you are, you can't do what you can't go what other people can do. And it's just, that's just what we have to be able to live with. And we have to let our children know that. Of course, now, like I said, we've got very few families that you don't find that there's mixed children in it. We're just moving that way, but still, we've got that class division. And I don't know whether it'll ever get any different. If there's no find it coming that way, it'll come someplace else. And that's one thing that I find with our country, that we should be a country that's together, because that's what it's built on. Send me your poor. You understand? But my Statue of Liberty is the High River. And like I said, when they wrote that book at Uncle Tom's Cabin, and you know, she comes skipping across the river on the ice and all this kind of thing, you know, that's our name to fame. When you come on this side of the river, that you actually felt that you had a chance. Not an equal chance, but you had a chance. I don't know whether that helped you out, but that's my story.
That's more.
And I'm sticking to it. I hear people talking about going back to Africa. Africa don't want us. My daughters, 3 of them got, and they had an opportunity to go to Africa. One of my daughters is light skinned. One of them is medium light skinned, and this one over here, well, she's a shade dark. And they were all 3 walking down the street together. And there was an African on the other side of the street, hollered over and told, get away from them people, get away from them people over there. They don't associate with our mixed society.
Right.
And you know, we talk about going back to Africa. They don't want us back in Africa. In fact, Africans that I can remember back in the 50s and 60s would come here, and they were actually treated better than we were that were Americans. So, you know, and I've had people to ask me, well, why in the world, why did you take what you did? Well, where was you going to go? You couldn't go somewhere and blend in. You couldn't hide. You couldn't do anything. Well, what was you going to do? And why didn't you fight? What was you going to fight with? And really, what we suffered had to be divine intervention. But we made it. We made it living off of what everybody threw away, what everybody give, and that's what I'm talking about. Lambert Land. We survive. We've become people that are able to survive in this world in which we live. We, the people of the United States, and all of those things, it wasn't written for us. We had no rights. The first thing that I remember, and I grew up in a mixed community, you know, white and black. And I grew up in a community, I never realized what was going on down south. But I graduated from high school in 1958, got on the bus and went to Maryland. Got off the bus in 1958, first thing I seen was black and white. Had no idea, and you know what that is? I was the only black boy in my class that graduated. And when I stepped off that bus and seen that, you understand what I'm saying? I didn't have no idea. But down there, they were used to that. They understood they're at a place, and I wasn't used to that. And you'd be amazed at what that did to me. It made me bitter on the inside. It made me resentful on the inside, and I got down there and I just felt that everybody was looking at me. I didn't know what to do, didn't know how to act, because I'd never been acquainted with that.
Yeah.
But like I said, we are privileged to be, and like I said, it's hard to find in today's society a complete African American living in the United States of America. I've heard you keep saying we, this, that, and the other, and I assumed that because you're light enough that you could go somewhere and pass for whatever you want to do. Yeah. You know, you could. Yeah. Just like that little blonde-headed girl. She's as white, blue-eyed, blonde-haired as you can possibly be. But one drop of black blood, that she's black. You understand what I'm saying? And that's the society that and it's been that way even before the Civil War. And it will always be that way. And that's one thing about the United States of America that I can't understand is that we the people, there'll always be that class of people that we will never ever be equal to that. And I don't care whether you're black, whether you're Indian, or whether you're this, or whether you're that. But there used to be a saying when I grew up, if you're white, you're all right. If you're brown, stick around. If you're black, you stay back. And that's still Even in New Orleans and places like, they got class things. But like I said, here, you know, and of course, like you said, there's going to come a time when, so I've got 3 or 4 of my children are all married mixed, you know, in the mixed family. But there's going to come a time when all these things are not going to be there, but there'll always be a class separation. Always be there.